Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this side event. We are really happy to see so many people tuning in. We also expect more people to join us in a moment. So let me start with a few opening remarks, very short indeed, before we launch into this super exciting conversation. Dear colleagues, dear everyone, my name is Arvind Gadgil, and I am the director of the UNDP Global Policy Center for Governance. Our mandate is to explore frontier governance issues and provide data, insight, and knowledge to try to inform the global conversation on governance systems. UNDP and our center is also proudly a lead supporting agency for the Praia City Group. And it is really a great pleasure and honor for UNDP to moderate this important discussion hosted by the Praia City Group on governance statistics. Today, we are discussing strategies that national statistics offices have used to nurture the link between the production of governance statistics and the policy agenda in their countries. This is a key consideration, of course, for the Praia Group, as its two task teams are now preparing to field test new methodological instruments that will enable the production of globally comparable official statistics on participation in political and public affairs and on discrimination and equality. Meanwhile, many other NSOs, National Statistics Offices, are already producing a range of statistics on various dimensions of governance, not least to report on SDG 16 indicators. So as this production of governance statistics continues to expand around the world, the question of what can be done to make this data count in policymaking is very important. At a time of growing crises and shrinking budgets, and a time when governments and development partners need to make the most of every dollar, many of us would argue that it's particularly critical for policymakers and citizens alike to have access to high-quality governance statistics and to act on that, because research shows that good governance systems can significantly increase the efficiency and impact of all other spending. But as for many other statistical fields, we know that the production of more and better governance statistics will not automatically translate into greater use in policymaking. So today, we have the privilege of hearing firsthand from senior statisticians from Mexico, Norway, Peru, and South Africa, who have been wrestling with this challenge for years now. They will share with us a wealth of insights and approaches that they have tested themselves to help bring more governance statistics into the public sphere and in policy. So let me just say that if you do have questions as we go along, please post them in the comments box. I think it should be open, the chat box. And we'll try to save some time at the end to post those to the panel. But let's get going. So with no further ado, let me turn to Mr. Adrian Franco from INEGI, Mexico. Adrian, good to see you. You are the head of the National Subsystem on Governance, Crime, and Justice Statistics at INEGI, Mexico. And your department has been producing a wide range of governance statistics on a regular basis for more than a decade now. So the question to you is as follows. Can you tell us briefly how you have engaged with various users of governance statistics in Mexico? And can you illustrate for us, with one or two examples perhaps, how this led to governance statistics having a real impact on public policy? Does that sound okay to you, Arjun?
Yeah, Arvind, thank you very much, Arvind, for such a very nice presentation and introduction to the topics. Thank you very much also for asking us to participate in this side event. As you said, very exciting. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Happy to see colleagues and friends. As Arvind said, governance, it's a crucial issue in our modern democracies at this time. And of course, statistics and statisticians cannot be behind this. We can be at the front and around to build a very good governance systems. And one element essential to this is to have data in which we have to base our decisions around some elements of governance. As Arvind said, since we have produced governance statistics for more a decade. Since 2009, we have been producing these kind of statistics with several topics with several mechanisms. It means surveys and administrative records and census of a government and many other instruments. And for us, users are very, very important. And I would like to tell you our experience in this in order to share with other colleagues and the people here what we do with users. Well, let me put this in three different steps. First, our national constitution established a national statistical system related to different areas, but also behind the national constitution and the specific law for the national statistical system established a subsystem related to governance, crime, and justice statistics. And when we talk about this subsystem, this is national. It covers all the topics, all the instruments. And to do this, our governance structure of this includes several groups, specific groups that we call technical committees, executive committees, and also another very formal committees in which we put together users and producers of data. The main objective of these specific topics, for example, we have a technical committee related to governance statistics. We have another one related to justice statistics, another to crime statistics, another to public security, another for human rights statistics, and then we have 7 of these specific groups. We put together, as I said, users and producers. Why? Because we collect demands or requirements of data from them, because the users are always demanding data in order to make public policies, to make programs, to make policies, or to make decisions. So they say, well, we need this kind of statistics and in this topic, and the producers on the other side, sometimes are the same people. So we put together and we decide what are the products we are going to produce related to statistics. For example, we need to produce all data in order to be helpful to decision making because our law in Mexico established that we have to produce all the data in order to contribute to the national development. So it means that we have to produce very useful and actionable data for these users. So this is our first step in which, as I said, we put together the users and producers, and INEGI, the National Statistical Office, is in the middle of this, coordinating this relationship in order to produce the data. We put together 16 times a year all these 7 special committees and the executive committee. It means that there are a lot of interactions, very formal in that. The second step is when we have also in Mexico, we have a lot of laws. I will not deal with that, but this is very, very, very complex issue. But we have a very specific law related to national development and national planning. And that law established that all the governments, federal, 32 states, and more than 2,500 local governments, must create a national or regional or specific development plan. So when after they are elected, the people, they start worry about to build these development plans. And what we have created in these 15 years is to go with them at the very beginning of the period of their administration, in order to say, well, we have this set of indicators related to governance, including, of course, some of the non-discriminations, human rights, corruption, or tackling corruption in public security, or our menu, we put to them, and we said, we'll have all this information, and we can disaggregate by local governments or state level, or women, men, young people, specific sets of people, and so on. So we put to them, and we said, well, you can use this. So it starts a process, very, 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 very complex process in which they ask for us several indicators, several information in order to put in that plans. For example, our national development plan includes lots of indicators related to this kind of governance statistics and justice and security, and also specific and thematic programs and regional programs and so on. So I can make a huge list of these indicators. And our third step, in order to see how we relate or we engage with users, is that beside the committees, the very formal committees, and this moment in which we go with them in order to make the formal planning process, every day, almost every day, we have meetings with high-level people, with the ministries, in the states, in the local governments, in order to share with them information. Of course, we have a website. We have a very important website and a web page of INEGI, but in order to say the truth, it's very complex. Our web page is very complex. If you go in them, it is very easy to get lost. So, and it is for specialized people. So what I do, for example, in my case, every day I have meetings with people in the defense, in the army, people who is responsible for tackling corruption, people who is responsible for human rights policies, the head of the governments in local or the federal. Even, for example, there are specialized cabinets. For example, the president of Mexico has a cabinet related to public security, and I am a person invited to this cabinet. And I said, well, this is the result of our national survey on victimization, or this is our census on human rights, or this is the results of violence against women, or this is the data that we have for tackling corruption. And what I do is to share with them, and they say, well, they ask questions, and my job is to translate our data into some ideas that they can use in order to face the problem. So this is that everyday activity that I have to develop in order to not just to engage them with the statistics, but also to translate. One very important task is that statisticians, we are very complex. We're very complicated people because we're very technical, a lot of methodology, a lot of concept, a lot of science. But the border or the frontier is that when we want to translate this to the people who use that, they are not all the time, they are not experts on our methodology and in the process that we develop. So we have to translate the data to them in order they understand and they can use, and they ask to us the data. Where my very important testing that I am doing very well my job is when I receive more demands of information, for example, that they understand the basics or the very complex, and they demand more information. So this is my test that I am doing very well my job, because if, for example, imagine that I go on a meeting and I make a great, I assume a great exposition or a very great slides with a lot of data, and they say, oh, it's okay. And they never react. I said, well, I failed, because I didn't transmit the real issue of the relevance of the data in order to put into their desk or their job. So it's very important. And I can give you, in order to finalize this intervention, I can give you some examples in which we have done a very concrete, as Arvin was asking, and examples in which we have done very real impact. For example, let me tell you, I could give a lot of examples, but let me tell you that some years ago, there was a national initiative in which they say, well, because our very complex Mexican structure of governments, federal, state, and local governments, we have in the local governments, for example, we have, I told you, 2,500 local governments. Every of these governments has a police. So we have about 1,800 police corporations in local governments. Plus the 32 states, they have their own police and different corporations of police. And also we have a federal police that we have 3 times of police. So in total, we have about 2,000 different corporations of police. They are independent each other, so they don't talk all the time. And the initiative for the Chamber of Deputies was, well, we have to disappear all the local police, all these 1,800 police corporations. And because they don't coordinate and we have a lot of problems. So I said, well, okay. And so in EJI, we went there to the discussion and we said, well, look, we collect all the data from the police in the local governments, and we have each local government, we have the data of how many people, how many police are there, women, men, what they do, what are the actions, what is the amount of the proportion of the budget that they represent, and whatever. And so they discover with data that if they eliminate the police, they eliminate about the 60% of the total operations of the police at national level.
Okay.
So it's a very, very important thing, because they say, well, no, we cannot eliminate this, because even they represent a huge proportion of the budget of the local government. So if they disappear police, they disappear the operations in other circumstances, in other issues of this local government. So very important. Second one is trust statistics. Since 2 years ago, well, we have done a lot of data related to trust, but some years ago we start put in this kind of discussion into the justice institutions, the judges, the courts, and other authorities. And I said, well, look, responsibles of this, people do not trust in justice. They trust in this level and they distrust in this level. They like this kind of performance and they don't like this kind of performance. They think about corruption on this and whatever. So I start to put into this with a lot of data related to trust, and they started to worry about, because justice in general, not justice for one area, familiar justice, civil justice, commercial, criminal justice, and so on. It is very complicated in Mexico. So they said, well, we have to do something. And they start to creating programs in order to improve trust from their institutions. And 2 or 3 years ago, they start growing, according to our surveys, they started growing the trust in population. So very important. And last one, corruption in police, for example. Corruption is a very complicated issue. You know, it's multidimensional and so many other things. But we have a problem with corruption in police, mainly in local police. These police that we say before, we have a lot of problems with them. Mainly transit police. So we start working with federal authorities, state level and municipal, in order to say, hey, look, from people who has a contact with police, about 60% of the people are victim of a crime of corruption with the local police. So they start working 2 years ago in order to create special programs in order to review the activities, the operations of the local police, and then also to establish several kind of programs in order to reduce the problem with them. So I can give you really a lot of examples, but I stop here because I don't want to abuse the time. Thank you, Arvin. Thank you, all of you. It will be very, very interesting to hear from you. And of course, our experiences is for all of you in order to share. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, thank you so much, Adrian. I think that was an amazing tour de force of the topic of connecting policymaking with data and statistics. And I have many thoughts of questions that I want to pose to you, but I'll say that for later if we have time. But thank you so much for that. But we have more in store for you. Let me just note a couple of things before we move on. The first thing is that if you're able to change your name on your in your Zoom screen to also reflect the organization that you're representing, that would be of great help. In that way, we get a better sense of who's here. And the second thing I just want to note is that we've also now joined with the chairman of the Praia Group himself, Joao Cardoso. Maybe, Joao, if you want to wave your hand so people see you, that you are here. Joao is there. He is the president of and chairman of Praia Group. Let's
Gisela.
Good to see you, Joao.
Gisela.
Then let's move on to the next speaker in the roundtable discussion. So let me now invite Ms. Cirila Guterres Espino, who is the Director of Demography and Social Indicators at INEI, Peru, and co-chair of the Praia Group task team on non-discrimination and equality. Peru is really a global pioneer when it comes to monitoring governance through household surveys. INEI Peru made governance statistics a core component of its national statistical information system 2 decades ago. In 2003, when it integrated a survey module on governance in its National Living Conditions Survey, thus ensuring a steady production of governance statistics on an annual, quarterly, and monthly basis since then. Cirila, this remarkable story shows that the integration of statistical operations on governance in the national statistical system helps ensure continuity in the production of such statistics and helps nurture the demand.
Ahora me toca español.
Could you start, Cirila, can you hear me? Yes. Could you please start by telling us a little bit about how you have seen this demand of governance evolve in your country over the last 2 decades, and about your particular engagement in recent years with users of statistics on discrimination? Cirila, please, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Armin. Saludos para todos los presentes en esta importante conferencia. Sí, efectivamente, la demanda de información ha sido alta, especialmente por parte de la sociedad civil. Parte de los grupos más activos en la demanda de información son aquellos que representan a poblaciones con mayor riesgo de sufrir discriminación, como las poblaciones de las minorías étnicas, la población LGTBI, los afrodescendientes, los inmigrantes, los discapacitados, considerados por ello como poblaciones vulnerables. Estos grupos continuamente demandan respeto a sus derechos, por lo cual reclaman mayor visibilidad en la información estadística oficial. Por ello, en Perú, en el INEI, cada año, en el momento de revisar las encuestas antes de iniciar la ejecución de campo, se invita a los usuarios para evaluar las preguntas y en el diseño, de ser posible, de incorporar nuevas preguntas, ¿no? Y así podemos producir una información de acuerdo a la necesidad de los usuarios. La relevancia política, ¿no?, de los datos producidos ha sido un factor clave detrás de la alta continua demanda de estos datos. Cuando se introdujeron en las encuestas de hogares para medir el ODS 16, por ejemplo, sobre discriminación, nuestros usuarios quedaron muy activos, pero no muy satisfechos. Querían profundizar más datos, más detalles de la discriminación. Por ello, los grupos vulnerables vinieron y solicitaron al INEI también que sean visibles en las estadísticas. Y por ello también implementamos varias encuestas especializadas. Las organizaciones representativas de las poblaciones vulnerables pasaron a exigir de manera más notoria sus demandas de políticas públicas orientadas a superar la discriminación. Es por ello, ¿no?, que el INEI, en coordinación con las instituciones y organizaciones que demandan información, ¿no?, ha incorporado en diversos instrumentos de registro de información temas relacionados a la vulneración de sus derechos. Así, en el INEI Perú, en todas las encuestas de hogares que ejecuta, se incorporó preguntas relacionadas a la autopercepción étnica, a la discapacidad, entre otros temas. En la encuesta nacional de hogares sobre condiciones de vida, se incorporó desde el año 2001 un módulo de gobernanza que permite informar al país indicadores relacionados a la discriminación y acoso, confianza en las instituciones, corrupción, identidad de la población con su comunidad, comportamiento de los miembros del hogar, confianza en las instituciones públicas y temas de corrupción. El INEI, en su política de difusión de información, provee mediante un informe técnico de manera trimestral, ¿no?, el avance de estos datos con fines de políticas públicas. También hemos ejecutado encuestas especializadas relacionadas con los grupos vulnerables, tales como la encuesta especializada sobre victimización, la encuesta especializada a la población discapacitada, una encuesta virtual a la población LGTBI, encuesta especializada de violencia de género, que nosotros lo llamamos Encuesta Nacional de Relaciones Sociales, 2 encuestas especializadas sobre la situación de la población venezolana en el Perú, que es una población inmigrante con muchos problemas e indicadores que proporcionar al país para poderlos incluir integralmente en nuestra sociedad. En la actualidad, con la participación del Ministerio de Justicia y Derechos Humanos, el Ministerio Público, la Defensoría del Pueblo y el Poder Judicial, así como organizaciones de la población LGTBI, coordinamos poder realizar la segunda encuesta virtual sobre esta población. Por otra parte, hemos iniciado las actividades preparatorias de una gran encuesta de violencia de género en este 2024, que por primera vez pondremos a disposición del país indicadores de violencia, de acoso, de los 24 departamentos en los cuales tiene el Perú. El INEI constantemente produce esta información de acuerdo a las necesidades y los problemas y donde grupos se marginen sus derechos. Finalmente, el Perú produce esta información dentro de del cumplimiento de algunos compromisos internacionales, como también como función y ejerce dentro de la rectoría de la producción de la información estadística del Perú. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for that, Cyrilla. I think that was super interesting to listen to. I hope we can get more into the details in a moment. Can I now turn to Mr. Solly Molayi, who is the Chief Director of Social Statistics at Statistics South Africa. Solly, Statistics South Africa also has a well-established survey questionnaire on governance, public safety, and justice, which you have conducted annually since 2018. So what has been your engagement strategy with prospective users of these statistics? And can you give us an illustration of how these statistics have been used so far? Solly, please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting us. And good day, good morning. As you have mentioned, Chair, as South Africa, we've been running a survey, and this is our annual survey. So we've been running it since from 2018. And I think just like my colleagues have already alluded to how the need of governance statistics is the same in South Africa also. One of the things that we are doing from our side is that we are able to bring together stakeholders that are interested in this governance statistics. And this, I think from our side, when we started with the governance statistics, we looked at we were trying to make sure that we are closing the data gap. So we used the survey that the established survey that we had. We managed to re-engineer it in 2018 to make sure that it cover all the government statistics. So, and one of the reason or one of the drive to do this was to strengthen the governance as we are in the national in our national development plan. The governance is a key central dimension. So if you read our national planning, 4 out of 15 chapters, they are dedicated to governance and peace and justice. So that was also a need that we needed to do the survey itself. So I wanted to put that in context so that before I talk to our strategy in engaging our stakeholders. So on an annual basis, we're releasing the data. One of our key stakeholder is the media. So we're using media a lot to help us to reach a broader, wider data users. So we're engaging on radio, we're engaging on the TV, and we're also making sure that we're using our digital platforms to publicize our survey and also our results. One of the things in our Statistical Act as a National Statistical Office and also our dissemination strategies that data is a public good. So we make sure that when we are done a survey, the researchers are able to have access to the data, because we believe that the data, if it's public, is on a public domain, the researchers can be able to also do the data mining and also bring another insight into the data. So one of the things that we do, we're releasing the data, we're releasing the metadata, we're releasing all of the questionnaire is in our public domain. If you go to our website, you will get all the data points that we have collected since 2018. That's another strategy that we use. Over and above having a bilateral meetings with NGOs and also key department within our government system. The other thing that we are also doing is that we are also having a good relationship with academia institutions. So we have already have a very solid relationship with one of our biggest universities in South Africa, which is the University of Cape Town. So they use our data, they put it in their website so that their own students can actually also mine into the data and also developing other insights. So today, I even asked them to give me their download just to see what the type of users that are actually downloading this. And it was quite interesting to see also that it's not only South African students who are doing PhD and masters. We also have international students who are actually mining into the data to also increasing the body of knowledge. So we are also adding into that space. The other thing that we're also doing is that on an annual basis, we do have an engagement session with our stakeholders. We're bringing all the colleagues, just like my colleague from Peru was saying, to look at the questionnaire, to also look at, you know, the statistical production that we have, or output that we have produced, to make sure that we are still relevant and also we are still in line. We are also working with a key department in our government system, which is the Department of Public and Monitoring and Evaluation. That department is key because it's also monitoring the progress of government across all government institutions. So just like in Mexico, where you're having your Department of Police and also Department of Justice, through that department, we can able to track what is the performance of government along those dimensions that we're tracking under the governance survey. Maybe just to give a concrete example, we are working with the Department of Justice. As we know that South Africa, we're just celebrating our 30th year in democracy. So one of the national plan that we are also tracking is the national action plan on combating discrimination and xenophobia and other forms of discrimination. So that plan, it got indicators that needs to be tracked over time. So we as an NSO, we are helping Department of Justice to make sure that we are tracking how far have we moved as a country in terms of issues around discrimination and also xenophobia. So we are working very, very closely with the Department of Justice to make sure that we are also tracking this. So our strategy, it's that ensure that I can submit that way, Chair, that we are working with the media, we're working with the academic institutions, and we're also working within the government system to make sure that, you know, the governance statistics, it become a core within the work of government itself. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thanks so much. So I think that's actually a perfect segue into the next intervention, which is going to be coming from Mr. Vebjørn Aarlandslid, who is a senior advisor at Statistics Norway and chair of the Praia Group task team on participation in political and public affairs. Welcome, Vebjørn. Vebjørn, so Statistics Norway has been conducting election surveys for every election since the 1970s, and in collaboration with a research institution. Then maybe can you perhaps tell us in what ways do you find this collaboration with the research institute helpful? And of course, we're interested to hear how statistics on electoral participation have been used in recent years by the Ministry for Local Government. Vebjørn, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Arvin, and thank you also for inviting me and our institution to this very important event. Normally, when we are invited to these side events of the Statistical Commission, we usually talk about our use of different administrative registers and how we use that for statistics. This time, I will spend the most time talking about this survey that you mentioned, which is the kind of the official election survey for Norway, a survey that we have built up since the 1970s, together with the Institute for Social Research in Norway. The institute is an institution that is closely affiliated to the University of Oslo. This cooperation then goes back to the 1970s, and on a biannual basis for every election, both the local and the national elections, we carry out this official election survey for Norway. And we have kind of a division of labor where the sample is drawn by us and interviews are conducted by Statistics Norway. And then the results are analyzed both by us and by the Institute of Social Research. The survey has most of a focus on those who participate in the elections to get voting patterns, to see their perceptions, etc. And we can also link this to the demographic data that the Statistics Norway using a PIN code. We can link these data and also provide more of a demographic picture of the voters. Here we have very long time series, and what we have seen is that kind of the main users are the political parties themselves who use this to get more information about their voters. But also students of political science. I think every student of political science in University of Oslo or University of Bergen has been delving into these microdata from the survey. And this is similar to what Solly mentioned from his experiences from South Africa. But in addition to this, it's also obviously also media, general public who get the more knowledge about the Norwegian voter. And when publicized, this is a huge event for us and also for the institute. We believe that this cooperation it kind of ensures the best of two worlds. We have kind of both the academic approach, but also more the practical experiences that the statistical office can offer, and in turn, this gives better analysis. And our experiences from this survey was also the reason that we wanted to engage in the task team on participation in political and public affairs under the Praia Group. Here we are working on a global questionnaire that we want to work in many different settings, and we want to use the experiences that we have and also other countries have in kind of shaping this questionnaire. And what we see as an added bonus from this work is that there are some new insights about those who do not participate, to get information about those who did not vote in the last elections, to get some more characteristics of those. Can we produce demographic profiles, etc. And also knowledge about kind of the execution of elections. Are there physical organizational elements that can be altered in order to increase electoral turnout? In Norway, we had a discussion on 1 or 2 day elections, how the polling operation is executed in particular. So we hope that the prior survey on participation will supplement kind of the questions, perspectives that we have in the election survey. And it's always useful, I think, to have this international eye on what we do, and to learn from colleagues, learn from good colleagues in other statistical offices. Then kind of on the second part of your question, and here I have to go back then to talk about also about our use of administrative registers, is what we produce of electoral turnout statistics. Here we use kind of a combination of surveys and registers, but for every election we can produce detailed statistics on the electoral participation of different groups. For instance, we know that young voters have lower participation than the general population. But the youngest voters, those who are 18 years, they have higher participation than those who are supposed to be the second-time voters, those who are 21, 22 years old. We see that their participation decreases maybe as they have moved from their own local community and to a bigger city maybe, and their ties to political processes have been weaker. And these are interesting kind of areas that we study. Also, we have statistics on voters with immigrant background. We've seen that there's a huge heterogeneity in the participation from different migrant groups. Some have very high levels of participation, others have very, very low. And we can produce detailed statistics for the different groups. And also for other minorities, we can produce detailed electoral turnout statistics. And as a consequence, or using these numbers, the ministry and also the election directorate, they organize kind of campaigns, projects to increase the participation of these very groups. Hence, you can see there is kind of a clear direct link between our statistics and these activities. How much effect such interventions, campaigns actually have, that's a little bit more difficult to both measure and see. But I'll leave that can be another story that we can come back to at a later stage. But in essence, what I've been trying to say and talk about is that what we have been trying to do in Statistics Norway is to build up a system of a combination of registers and survey, where we can start with kind of the demographic composition of Norway, the mosaic of Norway as a society, and supplement that with living conditions data, and then get data on participation, how many candidates are there from the different groups, how many end up being represented both locally and nationally, and do we get kind of a, can we say that Norway has is a society where different groups are represented, and statistics should play a role showing these tendencies. With that, I'll hand it over to you again, Chair.
Thank you very much, Edwin. That's very interesting to hear you speak, and we'll have a chance to hear some of more of your points on that a little later. Can we now try to drill a little bit more into this key issue for this side event, which is basically, you know, how do we make governance statistics lead to more informed policy making? And I'm very eager to get your insight and wisdom on this and share it to the group. You know, what really makes governance statistics, what factors allows governance statistics to actually break through and be used in policymaking or in holding government to account? I'm sure there's not only one answer to that. I'm sure there are many answers to that. But let's give Cyrilla a chance to start to answer that. Cyrilla, why don't you have a go?
Muchas gracias, Erwin. Efectivamente, el INE Perú creó un grupo de trabajo de estadísticas de gobernanza cuando nos invitaron las Naciones Unidas para copresidir el grupo Praia. Lo integran el Ministerio de Justicia y Derechos Humanos, el Ministerio Público, el Poder Judicial, la Defensoría del Pueblo y la Coordinadora Nacional de Derechos Humanos. Este grupo ha sido muy efectivo, ¿no? Y nos ha permitido generar confianza y colaboración entre el INE y los usuarios, y así podemos desarrollar muchas capacidades. Sin embargo, la demanda de mayor información sobre discriminación de grupos vulnerables, ¿no?, ha hecho que el INEI produzca mayor información y más detallada sobre el tema.
I have to just check because I'm hearing two translations at the same time, and it's quite impossible for people to follow. Is that correct? And other people have that problem? Yes. So I'm just looking at signals here. Can we?
Voy a continuar entonces. El impacto producido por esta información ha llevado a que las organizaciones representativas...
Hold on for a moment. Please hold on for a moment. We have to make sure that we are in the right place here so that people can actually hear you. Can we go on now? Do we have that? Because for some reason both French and Spanish channels came up in the English, in the English translation channel. Okay, Cyrilla, I'm sorry about that. Please have a try again and we'll see if it works. Please go ahead.
Ya, muchas gracias. Gracias. Después, ya. Esta mayor demanda de información sobre discriminación de grupos vulnerables ha hecho que el INEI, que el Instituto Nacional de Estadística de Perú, produzca mayor información y más detallada sobre el tema. El impacto producido por esta información ha llevado a que las organizaciones representativas sustenten la existencia de vulneración de sus derechos y exijan a las autoridades públicas el diseño y ejecución de políticas orientadas a su superación. Estos grupos han estado en realidad excluidos de las estadísticas. Uno de los sectores más vulnerables no siempre ha sido la población con alguna discapacidad, sector que el INEI de Perú ha desarrollado información estadística sobre su situación. Esta información ha sustentado a que se lleve a cabo diversas propuestas de políticas públicas, ¿no?, para afrontar la vulneración de sus derechos. Así, por ejemplo, en base a los datos que se producen, se ha promulgado la ley de la persona con discapacidad, la cual establece, ¿no?, muchos beneficios, como la promoción y protección y realización en condiciones de igualdad de los derechos de las personas con discapacidad, promoviendo su desarrollo e inclusión plena y efectiva en la vida política.
Cyrilla, sorry, can you, Cyrilla, you muted yourself. No, it's okay, please go ahead.
Bueno, la mayor demanda de esta información sobre discriminación de grupos vulnerables ha hecho que el INEI produzca mayor información y más detallada sobre este tema. El impacto producido por esta información ha llevado a que las organizaciones representativas sustenten la existencia de la vulneración de sus derechos y exijan a las autoridades públicas el diseño y ejecución de políticas orientadas a su superación. Uno de los sectores más vulnerables siempre ha sido la población con alguna discapacidad, sector que el INEI ha desarrollado información estadística sobre su situación y que esta información ha servido para sustentar políticas en beneficio de esta población. Así, por ejemplo, se promulgó esta ley en favor de la persona con discapacidad, que establece la promoción y protección y realización de condiciones de igualdad de los derechos de la persona con discapacidad. Entre los beneficios que considera esta ley se encuentra el acceso preferente, por ejemplo, a los programas públicos de vivienda, el acceso preferente a los programas sociales. Las personas con discapacidad severa y que se encuentran en situación de pobreza tienen derecho a una pensión no contributiva del Estado y las entidades públicas están obligadas a contratar a las personas con discapacidad no inferior al 5% del total de su personal activo en el empleo. Esta producción para estos grupos vulnerables ha sustentado también que muchos grupos discriminados o acosados, ¿no?, sustenten y exijan el cumplimiento de sus derechos y que sean estas leyes que las amparen y que se erradique la discriminación y el acoso en el país. El INEI, en su producción estadística, incorpora estos nuevos temas utilizando no solamente encuestas, sino también datos no tradicionales que en la actualidad se encuentran muy vigentes. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for that, Cyrilla. I'm sorry for the challenges with the sound there. Some very, very interesting points. Let me just remind everyone that we will be going about 15 minutes over the hour, or over the half hour, depending on where in the world you are joining from. Now, I'll turn to Solly with the same question. to what extent have you found a solution to this? How do you make governance statistics actually impact on policymaking? Is there a short answer? Is there a magic bullet?
I wish there was a shorter or a magic bullet that one can actually share with the colleagues. But I think we need to do the basics. So from our side, we make sure that over and above what I said in terms of the stakeholder engagement that we're doing, and also making sure that we're getting the right people in the right rooms, and also using our media platforms, and also using media. What we're also doing is that we make sure that the product that we're producing is relevant to the policymakers. So through that stakeholder engagement, we're making sure that the modules because we're rotating the modules because of the budget constraint, as you've mentioned earlier, Chair. So we're making sure that we are we're asking the right questions, so that when we're producing the statistical product, the product talks to the policymakers and also the issues that are troubling the policymakers. So that's one thing that we're also making. What we're also doing is that we are also producing other products that talks to the themes that we're covering in the survey. Like, for example, we're doing what we call it the data story, because the data story is also giving data in a much more, easy language that a non-statistician can able to grasp what are the key findings from the survey. We're also using the video as one way of communicating information. So we have a 5 minutes to 6 minutes videos that explain some of the things that we have measured from the survey itself. So it helps also because then they can actually see the visual that also helping them. The other thing, Chair, is that we making sure that within those products, we disaggregate by key demographic variables. And I think my colleague from Peru mentioned about persons with disabilities. So what we have done also is that we use the Washington Group module. We have embedded it also in the questionnaire, so that all the key variables that we're tracking of governance, we can able to disaggregate by disability status, sex, race, and all these other key variables. So that is also key for policymakers, because they can actually track this indicator. Over and above that, Chair, we also have already started another set of statistical products. We call them a thematic report. So thematic reports help us to integrate some of the sources that we're using. So we're using the survey data, like my colleague from Norway was mentioning the issues, administrative data sources. So we have a product that actually look at different themes, and so that you can, for example, we have a gender series. So the last gender series report that we have released, we looked at women empowerment, and we use a framework where we're saying you look at the economic empowerment, the social empowerment, and also political empowerment. So that dimension of political empowerment, we're using the survey, governance survey, to look at the participation of women in the political environment, and also trying to understand some of the governance factors that are also tracked from the survey. So we're also putting a gender lens on the governance statistics. Then we have also another thematic report that also looking at children, which is 0 to 70. So we have done a series 1 that was looking at maltreatment of children in South Africa. The survey on its own was also instrumental in that, because then you have a better sense of looking at victims of crime and households that are having children within the space of governance, and also other issues that are related to governance. In the 2 weeks' time, we're also releasing another series on children against crime. So I don't have a magic bullet, but I'm just giving some of the things that we have done, factors that we have also used to make sure that we push our statistics into the right spaces, and also policymakers are aware of this. Thank you, Chair.
And just out of interest, just to follow up on one quick question. When you select the thematic focus for these thematic reviews, do you do that? How do you do that? Do you do that by yourself? Do you connect it with political processes that are going on? How do you make sure that there's a timing and an uptake that suits the political environment?
No, I think that's a good question. So through our stakeholder engagement, we make sure that we are also giving them what we think it should be an angle in a thematic report. So we engage with them, we say, this is what we're thinking, this is what we think, and then we're getting feedback from our stakeholders to say, you may want to add this or you may want to add this. So it's always being a two-way street between us and the stakeholders, because we don't want to produce a thematic report that is going to be in the shelf or in our website without being used. So it's a two-way street with our stakeholders. Thank you.
And sorry, if you don't mind, if you want to post one of these thematic reports in the chat as well, I think that people would be, for inspiration. Many NSOs do this, of course, but in different ways. Adrian, let me go to you. You were talking about, how it is a failure on your behalf if policymakers don't pick up statistics. I think that was a bit harsh. But of course, policymakers themselves also have some responsibility to know about the statistics that is being produced. But what is your reflection on this? I mean, in your experience with this really impressive, extensive, systematic work that you do to try to link your data production with policymaking, what is it? What are success factors? What are clear ways of ensuring success that this data is actually shining through in policymaking?
Thank you, Arvin. I guess it's the $1 million question. We have to face some realities here. First, all the statistics, all the topics have several challenges to be used. More in some cases, less in some other cases. Less, for example, when we talk about economic statistics. Everybody use GDP statistics. Everybody use price index every day. Most in every country, this is very common. So when you talk about GDP, everybody understands GDP. Even when 10 years ago we have make several questions about if GDP is a real reflection of the progress of societies, but it's another discussion. Population data, for example, population statistics, everybody use numbers of population, disaggregations, in order to know sociodemographic characteristics of population. Even we use a lot of population data. Everyone in the world, when you want to use rates, that means that you have to use population. So there is no question about the high use of this. But when we talk about governance statistics and subtopics like crime, justice, human rights, participation, discrimination, trust, and other these topics, the challenge is double. Because if we produce data on this, it is very common for statisticians that the policymakers, people from governments, they feel if we are doing some assessment or evaluation of their performance. If we release data on human rights, for example, it is very common that we visibilize the failures of human rights. About trust, some part of the population distrust on your work, so they sometimes make angry about security, about justice, about whatever this topic. So we have faced a double challenge, and that means that there is no magic solution in order to connect data to policymakers in order to be used in the way we would like to. But and also another thing is, and this is very important, we can do this kind of webinars and discussions because not all the countries are the same. I got a very good ideas from my colleagues here that sometimes we have tried. But of course, and the other thing is that people who is responsible for these kind of policies related to governance statistics, the other side, they are not very used to use statistics, because that's why we create Praia Group in order to create many data that even exist before. So this is very important. So that means that before this group or before many years ago, we don't have data about, for example, corruption or discrimination or trust or participation. So they are not used to use statistics. So we have another challenge there. So first, I guess in general, very general, first we have to explain to the policymakers what is this? The sense, the direction, the basic of these kind of statistics when we talk about governance. Second one is try to understand what they need in order to make better policies. It is not what we think that is correct to do or to produce. It's what they need. So if we put in their shoes, they have to understand what they need in order to produce together with them. In that way, I think, or in our experiences, that we connect the productions and the use. We expect, of course, years later, a very good result. And we have to try to be involved in the formal planning. In all the countries, doesn't matter the difference, in all the countries we have process of formal planning, a development plan, national, regional, sectoral, for some specific population, for some specific topics. And maybe we have to try to put the doesn't matter the quantity, but the amount of the data that we have on governance into the formal planning in order to say, well, this is important, and the government has to monitor these kind of things, and you have to develop policy making in these things. And third is the regular interactions. It is not the case just to publish our data in our web pages or in some reports. That the reports are very important, as our colleague from South Africa said. Reports are very important, and the more simple and the more concrete and the more translated reports that we can do and to give to the policymakers, much better. So we have to be a little bit far from the strictly statistician optic or vision in order to help these people to understand, but with daily interactions, daily is a figure, but regular interactions with the decision makers in order to help them to understand and to use. I guess we can go with this. Arvin, I said no magic solutions to this.
No, but I mean, those three dimensions, three ways of engagement, I think are extremely important and well taken, all of those 2 points. I'll soon turn to Vebjørn to also fill in a little bit here, but I would like the rest of the participants here to think whether they have any questions to pose. I will soon, after Vebjørn has spoken, I'll ask Nicolas Facel, who wanted to take the floor, as well as Ana Ortigosa, who's also asked to take the floor. I have space for one more. So if you really want to ask the panel a question, please let us know, and then we'll put you on the list. But Vebjørn first, please go ahead, and then Nicolas can come.
Thanks, Arvin. Now, I wanted to mention the examples of how to communicate this. We have done extensive what you can say target audiences studies of who are the actual users of the statistics that we produce, and trying to identify different groups that are kind of the core users of our statistics. And it's hard to believe, but there are few people who actually go into Statistics Norway website and play around just for fun. Most of them, they enter and they dig out one number and then they leave again. And if they don't find that number quickly, then they leave immediately. So we have tried to facilitate our statistics in a way that people who come via Google searches, which most of our users do, that they fast can get that information and that they can leave again. But then we have, for more kind of expert users, we write more kind of analytical articles, and here we have a tradition or a perspective that all staff of Statistics Norway are kind of communicators of these statistics. We don't have a communication department that communicate the findings. It's the single statistician who has developed this, who will promote and talk about the statistics. And also when we write these analytical articles, we try to phrase them and frame them in a way that they can easily be adapted and used by media. So I think the colleague from Mexico, you said that the statistics website, it's very complex. It's very difficult for users to find what they're searching. We have tried to modify and simplify this a little bit. Whether we really succeeded, I'm not sure, but it's an attempt at least. Back to you, Arvid.
Thanks so much for that, Vebjørn. Okay, Nicola, you asked for the floor. Nicola Fossell from WordCHR, please go ahead. Try to be brief and try to target it to any particular member of the panel. Go ahead, Nicola. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Arvid. I'll be quick. Let me first thanks all the panelists for the great presentations, and to say that the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is very pleased to participate and support the work of Praia. I just wanted to clearly say that just on the question posed for this the panel discussion, the demand for statistics on discrimination participation emanating from human rights mechanisms is very strong. There's been urging states to develop more data on human rights and governance statistics. And I want to say that from also what I heard from the panelists, something among the strategy that is paying off, it involved the collaboration between National Statistical Office and national human rights institutions. Why? Because national human rights institutions are major advocates for human rights and governance statistics, because national human rights institutions can facilitate access to groups left behind, because national human rights institutions are also becoming data providers, we've heard that, for human rights statistics, including internationally agreed SDG indicators. And finally, national human rights institutions can play a major role in using the statistics, ultimately, the statistics produced to make a positive difference on people's lives. So, and I thank you. It's more common than the questions, but thank you very much to all.
But let me, Nicola, let me ask you a question. I don't think I was supposed to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just interested in your last point. To what extent do we know that national human rights institutions actually use national statistics? Do we know anything about the uptake of these institutions of official statistics?
We know that they use that in different reporting at national or international level. They use that to make the case for also for specific policies, for new law, new legislations. That we have examples or that have been also shared, have been mentioned by the panelists. So they're really an ally to a National Statistical Office to move on this sometimes sensitive topics, given the mandate.
Super, thank you so much. Okay, so I'll go back to the panel in a moment. I just want Anna to take the floor. Anna Ortegoza, are you there? Just post your question.
Yeah.
And then
hello.
I'll go back to the panel.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to say the question out loud. I have a question related to this process of consultancy that the panelists mentioned regarding consulting questionnaires or data collection methods for with population, particularly population that are considered minorities who sometimes don't trust or are not or are hard to reach in statistics. Specifically regarding gender or ethnicity dimensions, which are ones that we are trying to improve in health data. How are these processes of consultancy? How you develop this process? If a panelist can explain a little bit about the experience of promoting those kind of process and how they think they contribute to this idea of collective benefit and authority to control the data by these populations. Thank you.
No small question there. I think we'll turn to the panel. I just want to warn you that we are going to end on time. So this is also your chance to submit any particular point that you feel you've omitted. So, but try to be as quick as you can. This time around, let's start with Vebjørn, go the other way in the order. So Vebjørn, why don't you have a go? Both you can feel free to comment on Nicola's point or answer Anna's question.
No, I can say very quickly on the last one that when we have had big surveys directed towards, for instance, the migrant population of Norway, we have tried to be very conscientious about this and to establish these groups where we could have qualitative interviews in advance. Gosh, whether it was necessary to have questions in their specific language, not only Norwegian. and see also where there are kind of particular areas that needed to be reflected in the questionnaire for those groups. But it's a huge task, and then again you also need kind of uniformity of a questionnaire. That's something that targets everybody, so you can't manage to reflect all these different perspectives. But we are very mindful of this. But other colleagues might have also other experiences to reflect on.
Thanks a lot for that, Vebjørn. Let's ask Adrian if he has something to add to this.
Thank you, Arvin, and thanks. Thank you, Arvin, and thanks to Nicola and Anna for the questions. Very quick. We collect data from all the. We have 33 human rights commission in Mexico, 32 local and 1 national. And of course, we collect data from them, but also we convert data into information very relevant to them. So in order to, they increase the performance for attending and to put attention into the human rights processes that they conduct. So it's very important, even that they, of course, use for a lot of reports and decisions that they make, including administrative decisions, for example, where they detect that they need more people, they use our data in order to increase their budget or their people or personnel or so on. And in the other side, how we get the impressions of people of specific populations. Let me tell you, Anna, that for example, it depends on the instrument. It means it depends on the survey, for example, or the other instruments. For example, if we talk about, this is socio-demographic, but if we talk about national population census, of course, we consult with every populations. It means minorities or specific groups of population. But another example in governance statistics is our national survey on discrimination that we released 2 years ago. And we go directly to a specific population that we explore in the survey. For it means women, men, migrants, specific populations that we explore in the survey. We go directly, and even more, we have a formal, very formal process in open consultancy. It means that during 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we put all the questionnaires that we are going to use in the future collections of data, we put into the web page, and we announce everywhere in order to participate. So we have several processes of getting these impressions of the data. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Adrian. Solly, any thoughts? Final thoughts?
Okay. No, thank you so much, Chair. I think to Anna's question, it's a very important question. I think just to add on what the colleagues have already said, I don't want to repeat. One of the things that we have done as an NSO is that we do have what we call it a disability advisory group. So it helps us to also try to understand also the person with disabilities. So we know that we have a targeted group that also helping us to make sure that we are addressing all issues in terms of that. The other thing that we're also doing to make sure that we reach all the sectors of the population is that we're working closely with the other organized NGOs. For example, we're working very close with the Legal Aid, our Legal Aid South Africa, and also making sure that the colleagues who are within that space of legal aid also. Because through the survey, we're also collecting the dispute resolutions and see how South Africans are actually managing and resolving disputes. And this is for the first time in South Africa, we're collecting this type of information, and the survey is giving us that. So it's a little bit of a complex question that you asked, Anna, but I think depending on different products that you are producing, and also depending on who are your target audience. And I think maybe from my side, my last input, Chair, is that the 2024, I read somewhere that 2024 is a quite interesting year in terms of, someone even said it's an election year. So if you look across the world, it's a year in which most of the countries are actually going to go into elections. So which means that the governance statistics become more important in this year to understand how different countries, especially the ones that are doing elections, in terms of collecting information. So the 2 modules that Praia Group are working on, those are the key modules that are also going to help us to take the governance statistics forward. Thank you so much, Chair.
Very well put, Solly. Thank you so much for that. Cirila, your thoughts, your final thoughts.
Sí, muchas gracias. Respondiendo a algunas inquietudes del panel, puedo comentar de que existe una creciente demanda de información de gobernanza, ¿no? Que yo creo que hay un proceso de desarrollo y tenemos las oficinas de estadística ser proactivos en generar esta información. Vemos que hay necesidad de proveer, ¿no? Porque esa es nuestra función como oficina de estadística, mayor información cada vez más detallada, porque datos globales no permiten mucho tomar decisiones. Entonces también tenemos que pensar, ¿no?, en qué instrumentos y cómo podemos proveer esa información. La pregunta que iba de Ana, por ejemplo, ¿qué hacemos para producir estadísticas de género o de grupos discriminados, de la población LGTBI? El primer paso que el INEI de Perú al menos hace es coordinar con los usuarios, con estas poblaciones, con los grupos que los representan, y en conjunto se arman los comités de interacción y se formulan y se determinan incluir qué preguntas en los instrumentos que tenemos, o si no, hacer una encuesta especializada. Porque como todos sabemos, este tipo de datos no se puede capturar con una sola pregunta o dos. Muchas veces requieren preguntas mucho más finas para poder llegar y proveer una información realmente que sea útil con fines de política. Y que también estos grupos puedan también exigir rendición de cuentas al Estado, ¿no? Porque es la obligación del Estado de hacer políticas para erradicar estos temas. También, ¿no?, esta creciente demanda también nos hace pensar a los cines a usar, como ya dije anteriormente, en otras formas de registro de información, los datos no tradicionales, ¿no? Antes los cines recolectábamos información de 3 fuentes principalmente: los censos, las encuestas y los registros administrativos. Los registros administrativos son un campo muy rico a desarrollar y para mejorar, ¿no?, creando estándares, nomenclaturas, porque también nuestra función es dar datos confiables y oportunos. Pero también tenemos, con el avance de la tecnología, información, ¿no?, que producen los sectores no tradicionales y que muy bien podemos capturar información para visibilizar y proveer datos, ¿no? Porque nuestra función como Instituto de Estadística es proveer esta información, pero que esté acorde con el desarrollo del país y con las necesidades de información del país. Gracias.
Thank you so much for that, Cirila. We are now about to close, but I want to say the following. Thank you to the panelists, not only for participating in this conversation, but also that you are part and you've taken part in what is a global moment. All of you are contributing to a moment in official development, official statistics that we haven't seen before. This decision that we are, as a collective, to define a dimension of governance statistics, and this is happening at a time, as Solly rightly mentioned, more than half of the world's population is in countries that are having elections this year. And we also know, of course, that the vertical trust in societies are more challenged than ever. And for me, it's truly a sense of purpose to work with the Praia Group, because it is where these conversations are happening. And not only on a very high abstraction level, but also on a very pragmatic and practical level. And this sense of purpose that I feel is because I believe that what you as a collective and the collective in the Praia Group can do together can be no short of miraculous. Because if this conversation continues, both in terms of developing our methodologies and the way that we do business in the statistical community, as well as having a frank and honest conversation, as we just had, about the ability to make that statistics inform policy, it can really make a difference. in a world which really needs it, where our governance systems are under strain like never before, with poly crisis, increasing inequalities, and intensifying global contestation for influence. So, friends, ladies and gentlemen, please keep this conversation going. Many of us will be in the Statistical Commission's meeting a week and a half from now. And we are very eager, both from UNDP side and from the Praia Group side, to engage with anyone and everyone who wants to be part of this global moment. So with that, I'd like to say thank you again to the panelists. Thank you again to the president of and the chairman of the Praia Group. And thank you to the interpreters who stayed with us all through. And hope to see many of you again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Chao, gracias.
Gracias a todos. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ciao.
thank you very much.
Ciao, Joseph.
Yes, see you on Monday. We're talking on Monday.
Yeah,